Hi there, I'm Emma, and I will take you through Week 4's class on understanding human intelligence, measurements and theories, and emotional intelligence. I'll also provide more information about your group's final project at the end of this video summary. Before I do, Marion told me that you really enjoyed her jokes and recommended I give it a try. So here goes. Why did the psychology professor bring a ladder to class? Because he wanted to get a higher education. For some reason, that sounded a lot better in my head. Anywho. During Week 4, we will start by defining human intelligence, describe the challenges associated with its definition, analyze the different tools and psychometric tests being used today, and discuss how many that are being used in education and at work are not culturally fair to some groups. After our discussions about intelligence, we will start to move into the complex and fascinating world of human motivation. From Maslow's hierarchy of needs to James Lange's theory of emotion, your reading and focus in class discussion can help unlock hidden potential as you discover more about yourself and those around you. As you read in Chapter 9 of your text, intelligence is commonly understood as the overarching ability to think logically, act purposefully, and adapt to various environments. However, the specifics of intelligence have sparked considerable debate. According to a prominent theory in psychology, intelligence is anchored by a fundamental mental capacity known as the G factor, denoting a general level of cognitive prowess. Coined by Charles Spearman in the early 1900s, this construct encompasses specific mental abilities such as those explored in previous chapters, including working memory, reasoning, problem-solving, and knowledge representation. For now, let's talk about what you learned about the complexities of measuring human intelligence. What is an intelligence quotient, known as IQ, and how is it calculated? IQ is a number used to express the relative intelligence of a person. Relative intelligence. Imagine that a child named Fan can answer intelligence test questions that an average 7-year-old can answer. We could say that 7 is her mental age, average cognitive ability displayed by 7-year-olds. How intelligent is Fan? We can't say yet because we don't know how old she is. If she is 10, her intelligence would be below average. If she's 5, though, her intelligence would be considered high IQ. To estimate a child's intelligence, we must compare her mental and chronological age in years. When the Stanford Binet was first used, mental age, shown here as MA, was divided by chronological age, CA. The resulting quotient was then multiplied by 100 to give a whole number rather than a decimal, yielding an intelligence quotient, or IQ. The average IQ is 100, and 68% of all people have scores between 85 and 115. Any IQ score above 109 would be considered above average, and those who score over 120 are considered high IQ. However, it is important to remember that IQ does not necessarily reflect an individual's potential, full range of abilities, or chances for success. It is important to note that intelligence is not quite the same as IQ. A person's IQ is simply a measurement of general intellectual abilities. True intelligence includes our ability to learn from and interact with everything in our immediate environment, including other people. Having a high IQ does not necessarily mean you will be successful. Many smart people overthink a lot, which sabotages their lives. Overthinkers often struggle to move forward, ruminate over problems, and fatigue faster. In fact, overthinking can increase the odds of mental issues and limit problem-solving skills. It is also true that having an average or below average IQ doesn't necessarily doom you to an unsuccessful or unfulfilling life, especially if you work to maximize your strongest skills and traits. In 2012, Vanderbilt University psychology researchers found that while having a high IQ will give someone a competitive advantage at work, there are 5 other skills that can be just as essential for career success. Those 5 factors are 1. Ability to be outgoing and friendly. 2. Self-confidence. 3. Being open to new experiences. 4. Organizational abilities. And 5. Strong communication skills. So, if having a high IQ does not necessarily mean success at school or on the job, why do so many universities and companies use it to predict future success? That is a great question. Let's discuss that now. A few moments ago, I associated G factor with the measurement of human intelligence. But what is G factor and what does it tell us? High levels of G involve both fluid intelligence, which is the ability to solve novel problems involving perceptual speed or rapid insight, and crystallized intelligence, which is the effective use of prior knowledge. You may recall that we talked about prior knowledge in our discussion of long-term memory. By way of summarizing this view, intelligence is a complex capacity comprised of a general ability, G factor, that is strengthened by both fluid and crystallized intelligence. In turn, fluid and crystallized intelligence are each comprised of a larger set of specific mental abilities. Here's how the G factor might look in the real world. While trying to figure out how long it will take to get to a street address you have never visited before, you might draw on your working memory, visual spatial skills, and some basic knowledge of math and geography. During the journey, you might need to rely upon your knowledge of languages and an ability to reason about unfamiliar situations as you stop to help people at a traffic accident that you come across. In everyday life, you never know just what demands life will place upon you from one moment to the next, but people high in G factor, intelligence, are good at bringing the right intellectual resources to bear on the variety of challenges that life throws our way. Challenges in defining intelligence. As comprehensive as it may seem, this definition of intelligence leaves many unanswered questions. How does the G factor work to coordinate more specific mental abilities? Just which specific mental abilities together constitute intelligence? Is there really a G factor, or do we all possess very different, unconnected intelligences? After all, there may be many ways to be smart. For example, consider William, a grade school student 2 years behind in reading but shows his teacher how to solve a difficult computer programming problem. Or what about his classmate, Malika, who is also a poor reader but plays intricate pieces of piano music? Both of these children show clear signs of what has sometimes been called aptitudes, yet there are some psychologists who feel that they are better labeled types of intelligence. One such psychologist is Howard Gardner of Harvard University. Gardner theorizes that there are 9 distinctly different kinds of intelligence, including linguistic, language abilities; logical, mathematical, logic and number abilities; visual, pictorial abilities; musical, music abilities; bodily, kinesthetic, physical abilities; interpersonal, self-knowledge; interpersonal, social abilities; naturalist, an ability to understand the natural environment; existential, an ability to understand spirituality and existence. If Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences is correct, then traditional views really only capture a small part of real-world intelligence, namely linguistic, logical, mathematical, and spatial abilities. Instead, Gardner would argue that a student like Malika should also be considered highly intelligent owing to her skill with music. So, are you confused enough yet? You're probably thinking, with so many ways to view intelligence and so many tests on the market today, how do we know if they actually work? That is a great question. When reviewing a personality or intelligence test in the workplace, the first question you should consider is it reliable? Which refers to its ability to deliver consistent results. The second question should be, is it valid? Validity is a question of whether the test actually measures what it claims to measure. But even proving that a test is valid and reliable does not make it ethical. Therefore, you should look deep into the metrics behind the questions and processes to investigate if the test can accurately assess and is fair to all people. Because of its complexity, the only way we can evaluate the answers to those questions is to find a way to standardize the testing process. But that's easier said than done. For now, just realize how important it is to note that the vast majority of IQ tests you can find on the internet and many that employers use to predict how individuals would perform on the job are either not statistically valid or fair. Still, the truth is that society uses intelligence and personality tests a lot. And we use most of them for harmless fun, like taking a quiz with our friends to find out what Hogwarts house the sorting hat would sort us into. But many people who are taking these tests are taking them quite seriously. 89% of the Fortune 100 companies subject their people to some form of personality testing at some point in their career. Some are close to 2.5 million people a year take the Myers-Briggs type indicator, one of the most popular and also one of the worst personality tests and predictors of success being used today. So if this is true, why do companies spend millions on their development? The truth is that hiring mistakes are expensive, and the search for the perfect tool to predict success has created a multi-billion-dollar industry. Companies use them for team-building activities or conflict resolution because we think that if we could just understand the differences in personality between people, then we would end up getting along better or working together as a team. And both of those assumptions are wrong. Most of the personality tests we use are completely useless. Fortunately, there are a few that do use proven research that can produce both valid and reliable predictions. Before we go into specifics, let's review what it means for research, or in this case, a predictive model, to be both valid and reliable. Measuring and predicting behavior or success, like student achievement, is a difficult undertaking, and there is a whole field of study within psychology dedicated to the topic of this type of measurement. It is called psychometrics. For an assessment in a specific area of study to fulfill its purpose, the score needs to reflect the level of knowledge or skill of the person taking the test. Several standards have been established in psychometrics for the purposes of educational evaluation to ensure the objective measurement of test takers' levels, and one of these standards involves accuracy. So, what is meant by reliability and validity? Reliability. If you weigh yourself several times in a row, a reliable bathroom scale gives more or less the same weight each time. Likewise, a reliable psychometric test must give approximately the same score each time a person takes it. In other words, the scores should be consistent each time the test is taken. Validity. Just because a psychometric test is reliable, however, does not mean that it should be trusted. Test validity is also important. To see why this is the case, try creating an IQ test with 10 questions that only you could possibly answer. Your test would be very reliable. Each time you give the test, everyone scores 0, except you, who scores 100%. Apparently, you're a genius. Even though we all have days when it seems we are the only smart person left on the planet, it should be obvious this wouldn't be a great intelligence test. A test must also have validity. In other words, it should measure what it claims to measure. By no stretch of the imagination could a test of intelligence be valid if the person who wrote it is the only one who can pass it. Ways to measure intelligence. Intelligence can be measured in a number of different ways. In this section, we'll examine 3 of them: general aptitude tests, the Stanford-Binet test, and the Wechsler scales. General aptitude tests. As a child, Hedda displayed an aptitude for art. Today, Hedda is a successful graphic artist. How does an aptitude like Hedda's differ from general intelligence? An aptitude is a capacity for learning certain abilities. Persons with mechanical, artistic, or musical aptitudes are likely to do well in careers involving mechanics, art, or music, respectively. Multiple aptitude tests. Multiple aptitude tests measure 2 or more types of ability. These tests tend to be more like intelligence tests, and it's possible that you've taken one yourself. For example, the Scholastic Assessment Test, SAT, the American College Test, ACT, and the College Qualification Test, CQT, all fall in this category, as do the tests for entry into graduate schools of law, medicine, business, and dentistry. Each of these group tests is designed to predict your chances for success in college programs, because the tests measure general knowledge and a variety of mental aptitudes, language, math, and reasoning. Each can also be used to estimate intelligence. Stanford-Binet test. The Stanford-Binet test is an examination meant to gauge intelligence through 5 factors of cognitive ability. These 5 factors include fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, and working memory. Both verbal and nonverbal responses are measured. Wechsler's intelligence test. The Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale is the most advanced adult measure of cognitive ability based on recent research in the area of cognitive neuroscience. The scale is an IQ test designed to measure intelligence and cognitive ability in adults and older adolescents. Are there tests for general aptitudes? How are they different from intelligence tests? Aptitude tests measure a narrower range of abilities than intelligence tests. For example, special aptitude tests predict whether you will succeed in a single area, such as clerical work or computer programming, Figure 9.2. Environmental influences. Of course, genes' contribution to brain development is only part of the story. Data suggesting that the environment has a role to play in intelligence have emerged in several areas of study. Parents with more education may provide their homes with a more positive environment, encouraging children to develop cognitively and thus increase their IQ. To prove the theory of the impact of the environment on intelligence, let's look at the research known as the Flynn effect. the Flynn effect. Many psychologists now agree that IQ scores in Western industrialized nations have risen over the last 50 or so years. Not by a little bit, mind you. If our grandparents scored an IQ of 100, which is average, 50 years ago, they might score as low as about 70 on today's IQ tests. Conversely, if your IQ is 100 today, 50 years ago, you might have scored as much as 130 on the old IQ tests. This rapid rise in IQ, referred to as the Flynn effect after the discoverer, New Zealand psychologist James Flynn, has occurred in far too short a time to be explained by genetics. Instead, it is more likely that the gains reflect environmental factors. But which factors? In 2012, Flynn credited modern society, which is becoming ever more complex, demanding ever more abstract scientific skills of its members. If you participate in virtual reality gaming or have taken a personality test that uses AI, you'll understand why people may be getting better at answering IQ test questions. Video games, the internet, and even television programming are also becoming more complex. As a result, everyday living demands greater abstract cognitive effort from us. In the end, popular culture may well be inviting us to read, reflect, and problem solve more than ever before. Does this mean that my grandparents were intellectually inferior or that I am a genius? No, but your grandparents likely depended less on abstract reasoning than you do. For example, Flynn gives the following question that you might find on a modern IQ test. How are dogs and rabbits alike? While you might abstractly answer correctly, according to the IQ test, that they are both mammals, your grandparents were more likely to give a concrete, functional answer like dogs hunt rabbits, which modern IQ tests are likely to score as wrong. Just like people from other cultures, your grandparents did not automatically value the abstract reasoning prized in today's more complex society. Nevertheless, had they been born today, they undoubtedly would have developed abstract reasoning skills just as well as you have. Alternatively, had you been born into their world, you undoubtedly would have, in the end, answered IQ test questions more like them. The takeaway point is that our intelligence, along with the ways we measure it, cannot easily be separated from the social and cultural context of the particular places and times in which we grow up. This finding is great news. If the Flynn effect is real, then it suggests that life experiences can result in raised IQ scores. Now that we know this, it's reasonable to believe that improving formal education in all socioeconomic areas can boost intelligence and eventually provide a fair and equitable environment for all. Consider, for example, early childhood education programs such as Head Start, which are designed to provide disadvantaged preschool children with high-quality educational experiences to better prepare them for the regular school system. Initial findings did not look promising. It appeared, for example, that there were academic gains for children in the program, but that they did not persist. In contrast, a more recent meta-analysis that was restricted to high-quality experimental and quasi-experimental studies suggested that early childhood education did have benefits, including lower rates of placement in special education classes and higher rates of high school graduation. If you're thinking critically, you'll remember the importance of experimental studies from Section 1.6. Experiments are the only type of research that allows us to establish cause and effect, and consequently, the positive results of this study are noteworthy. Other recent research focusing on the Head Start program found similarly positive results in a very large, nationally representative sample. Specifically, economists at the University of Michigan examined U.S. Census data from 2000 to 2013 and found that adults who had been enrolled in Head Start stayed in school for longer and were more likely to graduate from high school. Perhaps more impressive was the 9% increase in college enrollments and 19% increase in college graduation rates for adults who had participated in Head Start. It's not completely clear how ECE programs like Head Start work to improve adults' lives. The early studies suggested that it's not the result of improving their academic skills like reading and math. However, it may be that these programs help children with other skills that allow them to be successful, such as self-regulation, see Section 2.5, problem solving, see Section 8.2, or emotional stability, see Section 10.4. Given the importance of the environment on children's development more generally, see Section 3.1. Benefits to children may also stem from the fact that ECE programs allow parents to work, thus improving the family's standard of living. Regardless of your belief in these programs, it is clear that improving the educational opportunities in communities that have traditionally been ignored must be continued. As a student, Take advantage of the opportunities in front of you. Study, work hard, develop a highly successful career, and then pay it forward. The correlation between IQ and school grades is about 0.50, a sizable association. However, research clearly demonstrates that academic performance may depend even more on motivation than it does on intelligence. No matter how smart you are, you likely won't do well at school if you simply don't care about your grades. See section 14.5 for more information about perseverance. The same is true of real-world success beyond school. Although the correlation between IQ and job performance ranges between 0.27 and 0.53, the correlations are higher for jobs that really emphasize the factors that are measured on an IQ test. As you might expect, though, skills that are unrelated to IQ scores also predict positive career outcomes. Many of them are the focus of our psychology and your skill set sections. For example, self-regulation, section 2.5, ethical behavior, section 3.5, and the ability to work with diverse others. See section 17.4. Moreover, IQ is not the best predictor of success in art, music, writing, dramatics, science, and leadership. Tests of creativity are much more strongly related to achievement in these areas. Wait, did I just read that IQ tests are not effective at predicting success in science, writing, and leadership? Isn't that interesting? Albert Einstein once said, "Everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing it is stupid." These profound words sum up an interesting fact: intelligence is relative. There isn't a singular correct measure we can use to judge how smart someone is, and people often are geniuses in different areas. True intelligence is now thought to be more about motivation, creativity, and the ability to adapt to a new environment, none of which can be tested in a standardized way. To further complicate this issue, we have to consider that relative intelligence measures one's ability to solve problems. Standardizing tests means that students can learn how to test well, giving students in privileged areas a huge competitive advantage in life. This begs the question: how can one single standard judge the relative value of all different types of talent? Can we really say one type of smart is above or better than another? And is it fair for academic institutions and employers to use IQ tests for selection when lower socioeconomic areas are disadvantaged from the start? While experts have debated these questions for decades, that is exactly what many universities and employers do when deciding who is good enough to represent their brand. Which brings me to Einstein's quote: "A lot of what is defined as smart or not has little to do with actual intelligence and more to do with how well someone is able to answer questions in the way that the test givers want." This isn't necessarily measuring true ability, but simply how well students can jump through the hoops they are told to. And here is where children in low-income communities will struggle most, as they don't always have someone telling them which loop to jump through next. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in, and progress is slow and seemingly uncaring. Therefore, while a high IQ is admirable, it's important for everyone, especially for those who grew up in disadvantaged areas and have been conditioned to believe they are not as smart as those around them, to recognize that measurements like these do not define who you are. Yes, you can work hard, study, and improve your SAT or ACT score. But just realize that honing the 5 interpersonal and practical skills mentioned on the previous slide is equally vital for enhancing prospects of success in the professional world. The point is, regardless of where you grew up or the challenges you faced, you have the ability to improve your chance for success if you want to. But wanting it is not enough. You must stop relying on technology to communicate and work on your social skills. Improve your self-confidence by understanding your full potential. Have an open mind and take every opportunity to learn. Build effective organizational and networking skills. And if you desire to become a great leader, as hard as it may be for you, step out of your comfort zone and master the art of public speaking. Okay, when I first started this conversation about intelligence, I mentioned that I would provide a few ideas for you to consider for your final project. Using this week's lesson about intelligence, think about your own life and how the environment in which you grew up influenced your perception of yourself and the opportunity to become successful. Once you've given it some thought, go to Google Scholar to find research that can be beneficial to use in your own life to improve your current situation and help you reach your goals. If you select the right research and take enough time to immerse yourself in your work, This project can do more than help you achieve a high score in this class. It can quite likely change your life. Thank you for watching and have a great day.